Hey guys, it's been a while. How you all doing? I gotta tell you, this COVID thing has been weird. We just got in a wonderful shipment from Selmer of this great intermediate saxophone, this step-up Lavoie 2. These are beautiful, fully engraved, made in Taiwan. I test played this horn and I was nothing less than amazed. It really played beautifully. We got a very, very special deal on these. I'm not saying prices on anything, but they are truly insane, I must say. Reminds me of Crazy Eddie back in New Jersey. Our prices are insane! They really are incredible, guys. Come give them a try. You will not be disappointed. You will play it and go, oh my lord. This much horn for this much money, it's a good one.
Paul and Drums here at chucklevins.com. Wanted to highlight a couple of exciting items here in the drum department. First, we have the Sonor Benny Greb model snare drum. Very interesting piece. 13 by 5 3/4 inch beech shell. Historically, the earlier Sonor drums were primarily made of beech and are still used to date. We have 2 internal mufflers and a most interesting snare drum strainer mechanism here. Beautiful drum and made in Germany, like all of the flagship Sonor drums.
What is good, family? We are back once again, and I missed y'all, but guess what though? I have some new toys for y'all. DJs, I know y'all been hitting me up, y'all been DMing me, y'all been calling me, and I finally have it for y'all. The first thing we got the CDJ 3000. Yes, this is the newest CDJ that just came out. It is compatible for Rekordbox. It will soon be compatible for Serato, and trust me, the one thing you're gonna notice on this right here, no CD. Yes, the CD is gone. So for some of my DJs, real quick, you know, this is a DJ thing. Remember when y'all used to have to reset the CD before? That's all done now with the CDJ 3000. And I know all of y'all have been calling me, texting me, telling me about the S11. And yes, it is here. We do have the S11 Pioneer Mixer. And we also have the SC, which is the special edition one that was dedicated to the DJM 909. Y'all remember that mixer? Well, guess what? Y'all gonna love this one because it has those features plus more, and plus the S9 features. So one of the biggest things that I personally love about this mixer is that I can separate my banks now. So see, these are hot cues right here, right? Now if I hold this and hit sampler, now my samples are on the bottom. So now you might hear something like tunnel vision plug, or you might hear your own drops right here because they're right down here, and you got your hot cues right here. You can do the same thing on the other side as well too. So you can also do hot cue, sampler, and put it all on the same side. So everything can be art, unique, and synchronized. You also got this screen right here. And this screen was dedicated after the DJM 909. The best thing about the screen is touchscreen. So you can actually do your effects right here on the touchscreen. I'm telling you, this technology is so new. Pioneer has definitely outdone themselves with this mixer. All right, so now I've shown y'all the S11 mixer, and I've showed y'all the CDJ 3000. So now there's only 2 things you can do. You can go online to chucklevins.com and check out all this new equipment and more, or you can come in and see us and we can explain a little bit more and you can check it out for yourself. We'll see you soon, family.
It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Cause baby, I feel real good and I wish I would. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time, and I came to groove. The whole band's here, and we came to move. Got a fresh haircut and 2 new shoes. We're here all night like we got nothing to lose. Coming out the jacket, cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get up out your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot, and I can't be beat. Watch out now.
Hello, world. Welcome back to another Chuck Levin's Live. We are literally going coast to coast today. I've already seen people commenting on YouTube and on Facebook. We got Paul in Ellicott City. We got Ron in St. Louis. We got Harmony in California. We got Ken. We got Seth. We got all kinds of people all over the place. Chase in College Park. This is awesome. And we got a super cool stream as usual. And crazy cool giveaway. Our friends at Roland, incredible partners. They touch every element of the store from keyboards to drums to synthesizers to pedals to everything. They are here with us tonight. We got a really cool stream. We're going to be diving into some modular stuff. We're going to be diving into the new TR-06, the TR-6S, just like old stuff and new stuff. We're merging it all together. We got a great guest in Peter Brown, so we'll get into that in a second. But as usual, we have a super, super sweet giveaway. These things just keep getting better. Tonight, we are giving away an SP-404-SX, one of the most important pieces of equipment in music production history. We're giving one away, and tonight we're doing it old school. We're going to do all kinds of things. We're just going to give it away at random. Ways that you can get our attention. First off, tag your friends. Tag some people in, people that need to win this thing or people that need to see some stuff on the Rollin' Synths. Tag them. If you're on Facebook, it's easy. If you're on YouTube, I don't know, just call them and tell them to check it out. Just bring them into this thing and tell us that you're bringing them in. We'll take notice. Also, ask some questions. Peter Brown, I'll let him introduce himself and what he does, but he is one of the coolest dudes at Roland that I've ever met. He came and performed at one of our modular meetups last year and dove deep into the Jupiter XM and into the Roland synthesizers, the 100 series stuff, and the 500 series stuff. So a big brain, a great resource. Do not be shy. Ask some questions. There's all kinds of cool stuff to do tonight. So, without further ado, let's bring in Peter Brown from Brooklyn. Where's he at? There he is. How's it going, Peter?
Good. How are
Welcome. I'm great. I'm great. How you been?
you? I've been pretty good, all things considered. Not bad. Got a lot of new gear to play around with. And,
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah. So it's been pretty good.
That's been one thing that has been happening a lot is people have had some time to make some music and to dive in and explore new cool stuff. So it looks like you have been busy.
Yes. Very, very busy couple of months for sure.
Well, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your role at Roland? I think it's one of the cooler, more exciting things I could imagine doing in a company like Roland. So tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Sure. My name is Peter, and I am a product planning manager at Roland. I work directly with the Japanese engineers to concept, research, and come up with new products. Everything from synthesizers to drum machines to effects or to pretty much anything. It's a kind of a new role for the company of having somebody that is fully ingrained in the scene to talk to artists, talk to customers, and kind of get a feel for where the industry is at, and mostly just seeing where the trends are, and then kind of bringing that to what does that look like in a new product. So, we have a lot of really great things on the horizon, and it's one of, probably the coolest job I've certainly ever had. And it's been great so far.
So if you are watching and if you are a synth nut or a gear nut, Peter is the man to talk to. He's got vision on the future. He knows what's been going on. So yeah, Ron, they are such a forward-thinking company, and Peter is a part of that vision now. So it's super cool. It's great to have you here, Peter. So let's dive in. You have a crazy awesome setup in front of us, something I geek out in often. You got modular, you got the new stuff. Where do we start? Where should we begin with this craziness?
It's a good question. So, a few years we kind of came into the modular world with the System 500. Those were based off of the System 100M modules and modular synthesizer. And we recently came out with the TR-06, which I have here. And why they go so well together is the fact that the TR-06 has gate outputs on the top of the unit. So basically, the TR-06 is based off of the TR-606, so it's a drum machine, but it has the ability to interact with Modular using analog signals. So we can do things like, synchronize sequencers that are in the Eurorack format, or use it to trigger drum modules, or to trigger melodic types of stuff. And what I have going on here, I basically have this patch kind of running in the background, and if I start to kind of fade up the faders here, we can start to bring in the modular part, and then I can start to bring in the drum part, and we can hear how they're synchronized together. So
let's get in there. Yeah, let's listen. Let's see what you got going on.
Yeah, let's take a look. Hopefully it still sounds good. So bring up that a little bit. So let's take that like little lead line, for example. It has a rhythm, and that rhythm is actually being dictated on the sequencer of the 06. So I'm going to clear that out real quick. So typically this is used for drums, right? Typically it's like, okay, this is how I program a drum sequence, but I've got one of these patch cables loaded into a modular here that will bring in that melodic note based off of this rhythm. So I'm going to pop that in. Then I'll bring in some other kind of rhythmic stuff. We can start to hear the 500 series kind of has a really nice bottom end to it. So I'll start to bring in the drum parts too. So it's got these convenient knobs on the top that basically act as like volume pots. And then we're off to the races, man. So one of the cool kind of performance things about the drum machine itself, so I can isolate it here, is the we have those like volume pots right here. I can bring things in and out pretty easily. And then this section over here to the right are the effects that I can start to do, like delay or reverb sends, drive, different parameters to kind of change those. So like more of a gated reverb type of thing. And like I said before, it's all kind of tying into the modular just with these patch cables. So it also means that if I start to change the tempo, everything starts to slow down. Let's start to speed it up. And then because that these are all dealing with like note information, all of the kind of note effects that I can do on the 06, for example, this thing called step loop, it's kind of like a drum fill. So if I do like a little bit of that, if I hold a step down, it's going to repeat that. But if I hold down a collection of steps, it's going to follow along basically in real time. So it'll also tie to that sequencing as well. So I can kind of get some like interesting freezing effects happening as well. So this pair of gear is just like so much fun to play with. And the TR-06 itself is kind of has a unique character. It's not an 808, it's not a 909. It's kind of this weird cousin of the two that like has a really quirky, punchy sound. And like most Roland, like historical Roland pieces, the 606 was something that was sort of like a hobbyist tool or like a budget drum machine. Like, it was really light, really kind of, at the time, people probably thought it was like relatively cheap, but I somehow found a place in electronic music, especially in acid house and acid techno and IDM, and now people kind of love that character.
So the 606 is like everything else in the boutique series, is a recreation of a classic vintage, like the TR 606. It was like something that happened in the 80s, right?
Mm.
And it was a drum machine that kind of existed in between the two like mega monsters, the 808 and the 909. Like this was something else in that line, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the boutique line, we're never going to remake something just exactly how it was. We're going to add something new or
No one
modernize
would like it either. Everyone would find something wrong with it. This is unique. It's different. It's a different spin on it, and it's definitely correct me if I'm wrong. It's the first in the boutique line that has this much integration into the world, like into other things that can connect this many things to modular or anything else.
Correct. Yeah, we have like our TR-08 basically has one trigger output.
Yeah.
The 3031, the TB-03 just has CV and gate, but this was like we were kind of thinking about what do we do with this drum machine to really kind of integrate it into this world and just add more trigger outs, like give it some like really cool kind of trigger effects, and there's a lot of that stuff in here too to play with. So it's like it's like a evolved 606, you could say.
And something I always thought was cool, and I'm not sure if it still permeates through the boutique series, but I always thought it was super cool how the boutique series was kind of designed that it's not just like sampled old stuff. It's you modeled the circuitry of the original, and it's almost like getting as close to the original as you can using non-vintage parts. Like you modeled the circuit board, and every time it plays a sound, it runs through this virtual circuit board that emulates what was.
Yeah.
Which is super cool.
It's we call it ACB, and that's like the analog circuit behavior is kind of what that's like signifying. And really there's so many things that impact the sound of an analog component. So even if you turn one knob in some section, it's actually going to have an effect all the way down the line under the right conditions, or like, even if your room suddenly drops in temperature, oh my, suddenly your synth is out of tune. Like there's so much like, there's so many variable things about analog. So, with ACB, they modeled all of those interactions and then gave a certain amount of control to the drum machine itself. So basically what that means, like, here, let me just like fade this thing up for a second. So let's just take the kick drum, for example. I can go in and go to tune, hit kick drum, start to turn it down, go over to the decay page, and it's going to ring out. But it's not ringing out, or it's not triggering like a sample would. There's like a kind of a blooming, or like the sound of something kind of being overloaded. So it has like a little bit of like a organic quality to it. And even like the snare drum has something specific called snappy. If you turn it down, you can turn it into this like really dull kind of like tom sound. It's so much more malleable than what samples can really give you. With samples, you basically can turn it up, turn it down, put an effect on it. But with this virtual analog technology, there's a lot more freedom to kind of specifically design the kind of sound that you're looking for.
It has life. It has like real energy, and it's super cool.
Yeah. And it lets you, it lets you do things like, there's the advantages of digital power are basically in variety. Like you can get way more variety with digital. With an analog box, you're kind of locked into the parameters of just what that thing does, and there's not much room for changing. Or God forbid you have like a glitch in some firmware, and then it kind of comes out, and it's much more challenging to kind of like work with something that's purely analog to fix something. obviously we have like a really rigorous type of QA program, but the advantages to digital are pretty obvious, at least to me.
So let's dive into what we were hearing there a minute ago. I mean, that was awesome. It sounded great. I was certainly grooving out to it. So what were we listening to besides the TR-06? That was all the drum backing. What were the modules doing? What modules were we hearing? What were they doing? Take us through a little bit of like the System 505, the 500 series stuff.
Yeah. So we've got like a huge variety of 500 modules. The original run, you can see at the top here, the first one is a dual oscillator. So that's kind of the first thing. If we turn that up a little bit. So you hear that it's tuned to a fifth. I can actually go back to an octave. Those are two oscillators running into the 521 filter, which is a really smooth dual filter. All of these things have 3 inputs as well on each filter, so you actually have a total of 6 audio inputs for just one filter module. So it also means that it gets overloaded really, like it sounds really good when you push it. So the signal quality tends to change a lot depending on how, like, what your volume is at the top here. So if I push it all the way up, it's going to start to kind of like overdrive in a really pleasing way. So then from here, we have this thing going into the 530 VCA, and I don't know if you can see on the stream, the overload LED is like constant red, and I did that intentionally so that you get even more grit and more kind of like pleasing overtones. Again, if you kind of like back off on it, it's really going to change the characteristic a lot. So that's kind of my baseline in this patch. And then I also have things going into an external effect as well to give a little bit of space. So we get a kind of a nice atmosphere happening. Now, the second row is mostly all the new modules. So our most recent run kind of combines those 3 filters, or these first 3 modules here, the oscillator, the filter, the VCA. They combine it into one module. That's the 510. So this basically gives you like one oscillator, one filter, one VCA. There's multiple inputs for a lot of these things. There's also multiple outputs so that I can, say, break out of the filter before it hits the VCA and route it to some external effect. It's really malleable like that. So that's kind of what I used for that little blippy kind of like lead line here. And I have the filter right on the module, so it's a really convenient type of thing to use, especially if you're starting off and you want to get a lot of mileage out of just one module. This is like a killer analog voice that basically has everything you need. Aside from that, I'm also using the 505 filter, which is also... This one's actually the only one that's not strictly based off of the System 100M. This is actually based off the SH5 dual filter. So it basically has a multi-mode filter on one side, and then a very strange, I can't really think of another way to describe it, but a really crazy bandpass filter on the other side. So I can flip to that. That's what it sounds like. Which I think it sounds super weird. Roland's all about like perfect and like pristine sounds, and so this is like probably the most gnarly thing that we've come out with in a while. So these complement each other really well. And the multi-mode filter too is equally strange. It doesn't self-oscillate, but instead kind of gives a really weird peak when it comes to like what the low-pass filter sounds like. Aside from that, there's a utility module called the 555 that has things like portamento, sample and hold, ring mod, LFO, that type of stuff. Kind of all like the utility things that are actually really necessary to a rig that don't, they're not like the coolest sounding things, but really this is like how you make things sound good. It's just like boring stuff like that. And then the 531 is the 6-channel mixer that we have. And those drums, by the way, those drums are actually going through the preamp that's on the 531. So you can see there's actually a jack on here that's a stereo quarter inch, so I can flip it between mic and line, and then it'll kind of gain stage it accordingly. And then I also have a gain knob here, and it overdrives it really well.
That's
and
awesome.
When this thing first came out, I was actually tracking a lot of bass guitar just through this module because that preamp sounds quite good. Like I don't really have a like another preamp or anything like that. I'm not so much of an acoustic recording engineer. I don't really have a lot of use for that stuff, but this was actually a lot of fun to use. So I'll kind of route drum machines or external synths through it all the time. And then to my right here, I have the MC1 that's MIDI clocked to the TR-06. So if I fade this up, it's perfectly in sync. And then it's also in the same key as my kind of bass instruments. Sometimes you just need some polyphony, you know? You just need some kind of melody happening.
We're
So
gonna dive into that MC in a little bit. We have a couple questions already
sure.
that I want to get to because they're right about what you're talking about. Daniel was asking what kind of filters on the 510.
What kind of filters on the 510? The filter on the 510 is the same exact filter that's on the 521. It's a filter that was developed to emulate the System 100M filter. These modules are also, I should mention, they're a collaboration project between Roland and then Moleco, and they're based in Portland. They have a really prestigious and great lineup of modules that they've been doing for quite some time. And so Josh Hawley, one of the main guys at Moleco, was instrumental in kind of coming up with these module concepts and concepting the circuit board design, and that's basically the genesis of the identity of a lot of these things. Were his own love for the System 100M. So when you buy the 510 or the 521, that's the filter that you're getting.
It's a super cool collaboration. Moleco is like well known in the world of modular. To have Roland and Moleco work together was incredible, and these are beautifully made modules. We have them over in our module demo setup. I have a 531 myself. It's like it's choice. It's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
I want to mention, while we are taking a break for a second, for those that have just joined us, we are giving something cool away, and bring Peter on because I'm going to have him talk about the giveaway in a second. We are giving away a Roland SP-404-SX, super important piece of equipment in anyone's studio setup. There it is, super important. Tyler Jackson was asking, what is an SP-404-SX? Peter, give us the rundown. What's the 404X? What SX? Why is it super important? Oh, before you get into that, how you can win? I don't know. Lots of ways. We're gonna get crazy. So if you are on Facebook, tag some friends in. If you are on YouTube, just like wave at people and tell them to come watch. Let's get as many people in this as we can, and ask some great questions. If someone asks just like a stellar question, maybe you'll win. If someone brings in like 100 people, maybe you'll win. It's hard to say. We'll pick it out later and we'll let you know. So you definitely want to stick around because we're going to announce the winner live on the stream. So don't go anywhere. Lots of cool stuff, lots of cool sounds. Now, Peter, you can tell us, what is an SP-404-SX?
Yes, the SP-404-SX is a legendary piece of gear coming from our SP line. We started doing samplers, and you can find a lot of different products in that product line. Things like the SP202, SP303 was also instrumental in a lot of like early hip hop production. The SP-404-SX is actually the kind of evolved SP-404 OG, and you can find so many different like beat tape Instagram stories and posts. Even more so if you search, like if you do a hashtag search of like even the TR-808, the king of drum machines. Right? And then hashtag search the SP-404. There's way more entries of the 404 because it's so easy and simple to use. It's a very simple sampler that lets you load in any audio file you want onto any pad, and then you have access to dozens of really, really great effects. The best way to use it is really just loading in some of the songs that you make. You know, you could even use Ableton or something and render out that audio file, put it on one pad. Maybe you stem out things like put your drums on one pad, your synths on another pad, bass lines on, on a third pad, and triggering them in real time gives you this really organic kind of playback, gives you a really organic playback style. And then you also get this really great kind of compressed early digital lo-fi sound that the box just kind of innately has. There's really no other sampler quite like it, and it's one of our most loved pieces of gear for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't always take center stage in a lot of setups, but it's involved in so many, modular setups or hip hop setups or just any sort of it has so many applications. Like you said, like you can sample and then you do all kinds of weird stuff with it. So I see it all over the place. If you're looking for it, it's there. It's just not as sometimes as intricate and as exciting as a bunch of wires and some modules, but it's there for sure.
It's often at the output stage. If you see a big setup, I see a lot of people use an MPC 3000 or a machine or whatever it is, but at the very end of their signal chain before it hits the speakers or whatever it is that they're using to record, there's the SP-404. It's kind of like shaping and containing that sound, and you're putting in these effects at the very last moment that make that song so unique or that performance so engaging.
Just like Roland has in all kinds of things, just more vibe. It's just got such power and control and just adds that secret sauce at the end that just makes it, like, glues it all together and makes it so intricate and exciting. It's super cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you have joined us recently, if someone brought you in, you can win that thing. Tag some friends, ask some questions, get involved. I'm watching. Peter's going to keep diving into some sweet stuff, and we'll pick something out of a hat later and we'll give this thing away for free gear. It doesn't get any better.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. So you were about to talk about the MC101, the little guy you have over there on the right.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the MC line. That's new stuff that you guys came out with. You have the MC101, the MC707. Let's talk about the MC stuff. Oh man, more stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah,
it just keeps going.
It keeps going. Let's get into it. What's the MC line about?
Yeah, the MC. Oh my gosh, microcomposer. I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. But the MCs were our Groovebox line, and a lot of let's say classic customers or people that have kind of been with us for a while probably owned an MC303 or an MC505 at one point. They came out in the 90s because that's when everybody started to do digital things, and you saw a lot of things like sound modules, right? Like rack-mounted sound modules, or big keyboards that were able to start housing all of these like PCM tones, and having the ability to pull up a violin and then an acid bass line all in one piece of gear. Like, that's crazy. So Roland was like, what do we make for people that are really new, that want access to all of these sounds, but can't afford maybe it was like $1,700 in the 90s to get like a JV 2080 or something like that. What do we do? How do we make it work? So they came out with the MC line, and the MC line were kind of like gateway entry products to get into a lot of electronic music production, like early techno, that type of thing. And like, if you find one of those classic ones, you got to listen to the demo songs on it, because they're totally choice. They're amazing. Like, talk about really good sampling material. Just sample old presets from old early Roland gear. Like, that's that's the secret sauce. But
that's it.
They came out with a bunch of ones that they actually got increasingly more comprehensive and like pro grade. So if you see things like the MC808 or the MC908, the 808 had motorized faders, and the 909 was built like a tank with like all these like sound controls and stuff. So we hadn't actually done groove boxes for quite a while since then. and nobody was actually expecting us to revisit this area, but we've been kind of working on our sound technologies for so long and kind of putting it in different products and kind of testing the waters to see what worked. And having a Groovebox was actually a no-brainer for us because this was a great way to access those customers again. And we'd been doing, things like drum machines or acid baseline products like the TB3 and like all those early IRA stuff. But the MCs were something that, really, I was so happy to kind of hear about that project because you have these groove boxes that are essentially all-in-one machines that let you have access to our latest sound technology. You can have things like polyphonic strings with like killer drum kits. There's sampling. There's different types of time stretching for loops. It's basically a solution for anybody to compose something entirely from scratch on one box. And we came out with two very different versions in that one is a 4-track, one is an 8-track, but the engine is shared between these two things. So the MC707 is it's probably the most comprehensive groove box in the class of groove boxes that are out there. The MC101 shares that engine, but it kind of distills it down to a much more kind of like a casual and like fun type of interface. I like the 101 because I can bring it with me on the couch, put some batteries in it, put some headphones on
powered.
it.
Yeah.
When I was like taking the train still, I could bring it on the train and just hold it like a Game Gear. If people still know what that is, I don't but
Hell yeah.
But it's great, man. I mean, I think they're really cool, and they sound wicked. I mean, that has our latest sound technology kind of powering the whole show, and it comes with like thousands of presets too. So especially the big one. I mean, if you're looking for something that can run a studio or be a studio, that's basically what the MC707 is. And the MC101 is just a portable thing that you can kind of take with you to get that experience, but in a more immediate and like intimate way, I think.
So in the larger system that we were just listening to, we know the MC101 was kind of some of that polyphonic like awesome stuff. Was the 707 being used yet, or do you have it wired in, or what was it doing in the patch?
The 707 was doing nothing. It was
nothing, just looking pretty on the side.
It was like looking pretty on the side. I mean, the 707, at least in the context of this patch, the 707 would be overkill unless I wanted to just do something exclusively with the 707 and the Eurorack modular
because it can drive the whole thing itself.
Right. Like at one of the many shapes that my studio will sometimes take is like a modular going directly into the 707, and I'm just sampling stuff on this thing. Cool patterns or different types of things. The 101, as I said before, I just personally prefer this type of form factor because I like smaller boxes in general.
Are there any differences in function between the two? Like besides the track count, like are there literally any things that like the 707 does that the 101 does not?
So I think the biggest thing, if somebody's kind of weighing the pros and cons or trying to find like the right fit, the 101 will give you really basic sound editing controls, but the 707 is way deeper. So if we actually go to the sound edit screen, I'm going to hop over here a second.
Yeah, do it. We've got some great questions too. Well, I might as well just ask them since you're getting into it. Our man Alex Roldan's asking, is there a max sample length on the 101?
Is there a max sample length on the 101? It depends on what you're loading it into. If you're loading it into, like, say, just a basic drum sample or a drum track, I believe it's 4 minutes stereo per sample. The looper track, since the looper track deals with time stretching, it's actually accessing a different part of the gear entirely. So there's about 60 seconds of like time stretchable loop audio that you can load per project. Projects are hosted on the SD card on both things. So if you wanted to make a bunch of different songs, the idea is that you can just save them as projects and load them basically whenever.
Awesome. And then Seth was asking if there's any interesting randomization functions on either one of those.
Yeah. Actually, the most recent update that we came out with has a tone randomizer. So if you wanted to get a random tone happening, you can easily kind of load that pick out the category of tone. If you want a random lead tone or random pad tone, you can access that. So
Super cool.
yeah, there's
Good questions.
there's randomizing for tone stuff, and there's also randomizing for things like probability. We're doing a lot more stuff with like chance. So both in the MC series was kind of our first foray into like probability, meaning like if I wanted to make a hi-hat pattern but have like one beat maybe come in 50% of the time, you could do that and kind of program it, and it's a way to make things sound more organic and more loopable, so it just doesn't sound like the same thing all the time.
Really cool. Yeah, let's dive in a little bit. You were about to get into that 707.
Yeah, so basically, the sound editing on both of these gear is a little bit of a different experience. This is much more like kind of boiled down to the basic essentials. On this overhead, you might not be able to see the screen really well, but you actually have a signal flow diagram of all of the different functions. So if I wanted to change like the filter mode, I could use the arrow keys and kind of go to that section. So I can kind of use it as a way to have a visual representation of what my patch is. And that's the benefit of having a larger screen. So you have that, and then you have the ability to go even deeper because all of our stuff has like these kind of 3 layers of complexity. If I hit enter, it'll actually bring you to like a spreadsheet of all of the parameters and then all of the layers of the sounds, and you can actually start to basically see everything that you can do to manipulate that sound. There's a lot. And it's also worth mentioning that this is the same engine that will power our Phantom workstations.
Oh,
so
wow.
those are something that's like really kind of really like complicated, but like very, very intricate, because you can have a really big screen to start editing all of these parameters, and it's a perfect thing for people that are sound designers, people that have also kind of like, you know, done their work in like old school workstations, but also are apt at like doing sound module types of editing and things like that. It's the same type of interface. So we have that kind of surface level visual stuff, which is great for customers that, you know, grew up with DAWs and things like that. But we also have that hidden layer of like deeper complexity that you can really kind of get some crazy sounds with.
Way cool. And the Phantom is it. Like the Phantom is like, there ain't nothing that is as powerful as that. So to know that like the same sort of power exists in these different forms and shapes, like if you're not a key player but you still want some of that power, like MC series is where it's at.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a dance and DJ type of like Phantom engine. I don't know. It's like It's a really great system, and it also means that we can do things like come out with a sound pack that's compatible with multiple different products. So, for example, I can have a sound pack that's compatible with the MC101, and it's the same thing with the 707. So I only need to download it one time, and I can load it into the 707 or the 101 or the Phantom or Jupiter X. Like it gives you that kind of like kind of common language that it uses to create sounds with.
Way cool. Way cool.
Yeah.
So let's keep it going. Like, let's hear some stuff, I guess. Let's take us into some sounds.
Yeah, man. So if I want to make like a basic beat on the 101, let's kind of start there. So if I go to the track screen right here, and then let me just clear out a bunch. So the MC101 is 4 tracks. I can select the tracks with these buttons right here. So let's select track 1. This is a drum kit, so I have 16 drum sounds that I can use. So let's start with that hi-hat. So I press the hi-hat, I can go to the sequence page, and then I see my sequencer running. So I could start to program in notes. Go back to the note page, hit the kick drum. Super easy to start sequencing something. Go with that rim shot. We were talking a little bit about probability earlier. This is a really good kind of example of this. If I want that note to come in only once in a while, I can hold shift and hit that note. There's a mute percentage right here. Just turn that up. So now it'll be muted 48% of the time that it happens. It's a kind of a easy it's easy to access, and it's a kind of a convenient feature to have. Let's go to Snare Drum. So this is using a 909 kit, but if I wanted to change it, I could do that. So I can go to the browser, change it to an 808 kit. Go to the 909 kit. So it's really easy to recall and call up different presets, and then these knobs over here will let me change the sound in different ways. So if I access the knob number 1, it changes the coarse tune of like the entire drum kit, which I think sounds super sick.
Yeah.
I could also motion record that knob movement as well. So if I record enable it, it's going to basically record it as automation. So it's already locked in, and I can kind of move on to something else. So on track 3, I have a Synth Pad. And I can do real-time recording. So if I kind of like those chords happening, I can hit the record button. It'll record that phrase. Super fun. So you have that, and then if you have something that you kind of like and you want to do some real-time effects, there's something called Scatter that we've implemented in both of these machines that will chop up the audio in different ways, and it'll change that per pad. So I've got that pattern happening. Press play. They're kind of like real-time, like you can kind of dispense them in like different parts of the song or use it as like a sampling source, and you can also edit those effects as well. Kind of like a more DJ style effects, but they're super fun to play with.
Super cool. Yeah, Scatter's been in a bunch of things, and it's always fun and exciting. Like it just gives new energy to the whole thing. Like you can just remix it all like with a hit of a button. It's super cool.
Yeah. No, it's great. You know, one thing that I do also have here, which I didn't get a chance to hook up, but is also new, is, let's see if I can figure out the switcher. TR6S.
Oh yeah.
This thing is the jam. I mean, basically the key differences between these two items, the MC101 and the TR6S, they're both the same kind of dimensions, but this is exclusively doing drums. So if you're looking for a drum sequencer and that's all you really want to kind of focus on, but that has like, you know, the ability to save and load samples or do different types of like more experimental types of things, the TR6S is really good for that. You know, the differences between that and the 06 though, there's no analog outputs on this thing. So it wouldn't be something that you'd use as like a modular clock. But this is perfect for somebody that has a bunch of Volcas or has a bunch of boutiques that just need a companion drum machine to go along with that. And it just looks great. Looks really.
So what is the like in the sound and the guts of it? I mean, are the TR6S and the 06 related, or are they completely different animals?
Good question. Actually, so this is hosting ACB as well. So you get
Cool.
you get a lot of those models that we came out with before, like the TR09 for the 909, the TR08 for the 808. There's even 707 and 727 stuff on here. You have those models in here as well, and you have 6 channels to play with. So it's also a really good option for that.
It's like a boutique on steroids.
It's kind of like a boutique on steroids, and it's battery powered. It's got the phone jack in the front too. So again, if you're on the train, you could just zen out and make beats.
Super cool. Then those are the latest releases from Roland. Like the 06 and the 6S literally just landed like a couple weeks ago, like fresh. Like these are the latest and greatest.
It's like a 1-2 punch of drum machines.
That's it. That's all you need. So I guess let's give people one more chance, like, submit for this giveaway, because we're doing cool stuff. So if you have joined us recently, we're giving away an SP-404-SX Roland super power machine. Tag some friends, ask some questions. We got a little bit longer to go in the stream, so don't be shy. Just hit us up. Hit us with some sweet questions. Whoever is the most awesome in either bringing people in or asking an awesome question or doing something just super cool, we're going to give this thing to for free. So it's too easy. Don't miss out.
Don't miss out. Don't sleep.
It's happening right now. Don't sleep yet. Sleep later. Let's see if we got any questions right now. Daniel Lee is asking another good question. Actually, this guy. Does the TR606 have synth engines too, or not? So are you asking about the TR6S? Is that just drum sounds, or have synth sounds too?
So that's a good question. So the TR6S, because it can host samples and also is powered by ACB and is a little bit more open platform, there are some synth tones that you can use and sequence like in a monophonic way. The 06, however, this is strictly doing TR606 drum sounds with the addition of some kind of customized, like altered percussion sounds that you can also access as a hidden function. But this is mostly, strictly just drums. The 6S will let you do some limited melodic sequencing on it as well. And the best way to look at that is check out the preset patterns on YouTube. There's a bunch of videos of folks kind of messing around with it, and you'll hear that there's some melodic capability that you can use with something like that.
About the SP-404, Brian's asking, does it use an SD card to load samples?
The 404 does use an SD card. Yep.
Cool.
And then it streams off the SD card. If you have a friend that has a 404 as well, you can simply bring your SD card and load up your projects on their 404. That's why it's really good for live. We see a lot of folks that, basically gig like in the same way that you go to a gig and there's CDJs already there. We've seen shows where people just bring a 404 and they just bring their SD cards, plug in, and go.
Ken's asking if you can go unquantized on any of these machines that we've talked about so far.
Good question. So the MCs will record unquantized. The 6S and the 06 are to the grid. That's the you have like some shuffle, negative shuffle that you can get to kind of get different feelings, but they are strictly on the grid drum machine style stuff. So if you're doing off grid stuff, you would want to use the MCs, and of course the 404 is like very much off the grid depending on how you use it. It's like completely void of like even grid tempo through an entire song, but that's what makes it a lot of fun, and that's why people like it.
Super cool. Should we hear some more stuff while guys behind the scenes comb through some of these comments and see if they're gonna find a winner in it? Let's listen to this. Sounds too good not to hear more of it.
Yeah, man. So one of the things that I have running through, and kind of, maybe some people are asking what is this silver thing that's right here? Why is Roland using a non-Roland thing? Well, this is a really simple sequencer that I'm using to kind of get those bass lines happening. So what I did was I made it kind of go at a slower clock division to kind of have this more of like a slow moving bass line type of thing. If I wanted to change that, we'd kind of get a very different feeling for our song. So if I go to the division page here, and fade up the drums. I also have the sample and hold circuit worked into the filter as well. So this is actually a really common thing that people do to kind of give some animation to this filter cutoff. So coming from the 505, again, using the TR-06 to trigger some like random voltages from time to time. Fade that up. So it'll kind of jump around in different types of ways to make it sound like more super acidy, right?
Yeah.
And those two square waves together sound beastly. Like they sound so good. Another kind of fun trick to do as well, specific to the TR-06. You know, I was talking about doing probability and things like that. So the engineers in Japan came up with this really cool idea of kind of tying the probability of everything together with one knob. So that basically means that I can make a pattern and then have a bunch of steps that are programmed at 0, so they're invisible, right? Until I turn this knob and then they'll come in. So I already pre-programmed some stuff here, but on the 06, if I hold the menu and then turn the value knob up, you're gonna hear it becomes way more animated. I'll do that right now. And it's just one control. Bring it down, then bring it up. It's a really kind of cool live mechanic trick that you can do and it gets saved with the patterns that you kind of write on the thing. So it's a really kind of nice trick to do. Also, what's really convenient as well, if I go to the menu page, the first thing that you see are actually mute buttons. So I can bring in stuff like an open hi-hat, mute a kick drum, mute the snare drum. And I could just do that all day. I'm not kidding. So if you wanted to rate yourself on which Roland drum machine you kind of gravitate towards most, what would you say is your favorite? Are you more of a 909 person, 808, or 606? Or 707?
When I want to hear from the people watching too, but when I hear that 808, my soul comes alive. You just hear and you're just like, oh, that's it. I feel it in my chest. Like that's the sound. That's all I need. People are saying 606, 06.
Wow, that's good, man. I appreciate the 606 answer. But the 808, man. I mean, there's something. It's because I think we grew up with it. It almost sounds like
it defined so much.
Yeah, it really does.
It did the job.
Yeah.
You can say 909. So we got a little bit of everything out there.
Yeah.
Got
I mean,
2 for 909, but the 808 can't be denied. That's right, Seth. It can't be denied. You can't. You can like the other stuff, but the 808's the 808. It's earned its place. Dave Mann also says 808.
I mean, if you really wanted to look at like the usage of the 808 kick drums, snare drums, hi-hats, I mean, those are everywhere. But I would also argue that the 909 ride cymbal, and I know this is so geeky, but that 909 ride cymbal is that's everywhere. Any techno record, they're just like, 909 ride cymbal, just like always in the background. I'm like, oh, there it is. There it is again. Like it's got to match a little bit up with that popularity.
So which one's your desert island box? Like if you're stuck, which one are you going with?
Oh man. I think if it's my desert island, the 808 has a like the tonality of the toms. You can make melodies with it. You know, you can make a little kind of melody line, and it really kind of completes the package for me. Like that's. I love the I love the 909 for like its kind of punchiness, but the 808 just has that like musicality to it, you know. There's just, and if I'm on a desert island and I don't know, I'd go crazy if all I had were drums. Like I just need to, I need a little bit of contrast.
What else? What haven't we asked? What haven't we covered? We've gone pretty deep into some stuff here.
Yeah, you know, well, we could also just hook up the 6S. I'd love to
Might
do
as
that.
well. Let's
Yeah.
take a quick listen while I got the guys trolling through these things, trying to find the greatest, the most worthy winner of the SP-404-SX. They are digging through the comments right now. Let's see what other questions we got. Good question, Jeremy. If you could create beats for any MC, who would it be? He's asking you. So if you could create beats for any MC, do you have a favorite like MC out there that you would want to make beats for?
Gosh, there's a lot. I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of like Young Thug. But, I guess that's too hard of a choice.
That's too hard. There's too many.
It's too hard. Maybe Young Thug, but that's probably the most recent person that I listened to. So I think that's what my brain is telling me. So I think we actually have this dialed in. Oh my
There
gosh.
you go.
Oh my god. Okay.
Before you hit play,
Sure.
our man Bear's asking, which of them? Oh, what runs on batteries on your island?
Well, you got new solar batteries, man. Bring your like portable solar charger, and then you get your batteries hooked up. Boom.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
All this stuff powers on a mobile battery too, which is pretty nice. You know, everybody's been getting those. So, you want to hear the 6S real quick?
Let's do it. Let's
okay,
listen
man.
to it.
This one I was so excited about. So this I'll just play the first pattern on it. That was, I believe it was my main man Dustin, based out of Canada, and you know, the question that was asked, is this capable of doing melodic stuff? I think you're gonna get a good sense for, you know, what its kind of vibe is. So take a listen. So we go kind of instrument by instrument. We go instrument by instrument. We can kind of isolate what's going on. So on the low tom, there's an FM voice that's kind of doing this kind of interesting tonal type of modulation type of sound. And then combine that with the bass drum, snare drum, and all the other things. Has a really good type of like groove to it. The next one is actually something that I believe David did out of the UK. And this one's kind of like the complete opposite type of thing. It's a little bit more like melodic and mainstream, but it still sounds great. So a lot of that is samples that you can bring in and load off of the SD card and then kind of, you know, dispense them on the sequencer. And it's a really kind of like malleable type of thing to use. So if I wanted to do something from scratch, let me go to a blank pattern bank right here. See what it starts me off with. .808. So I have a basic beat that I just did super quickly. Not humble bragging, I promise. And then I go to the low tom, for example, and then instead of doing like an 808 percussive instrument, I'll go to like some cool sample that we have. Like let's do maybe one of these. One of these. So you could put a sample of like anything melodic with this drum machine and then kind of use it as a one shot. There's a little bit of there's some sample kind of sample mangling tools in here as well. If I change the control knob here to filter cutoff, for example, I could do kind of a filter sweep. But these knobs will basically change depending on what instruments used. So if I go to the bass drum, it's going to change to bass drum controls. So the bass drum control, instead of, filter cutoff, could be something like the attack, the punchiness of it. Kind of that needle attack. But there's a lot more that this has beyond just conventional Roland sounds. Actually, one of the most exciting things that I worked on at the end of last year, I believe it was, I went to Japan and helped out with the FM drum sound implementation of the TR-8S and the 6S. And this awesome. I'm super proud of. So we have an 808 kick drum, right? So if we change that to one of the FM sounds, it sounds completely different. It sounds like it's, first of all, FM is digital, right? But FM as like a way to generate sound is way more malleable and way more like intense and extreme. So let's call up a FM sound. Immediately it sounds kind of like wooden type of vibe. It's got the morph control as well. So if I go to morph, I can really change the character of that. Go to the snare drum, I can change that to an FM sound. And it sounds punchy. Like, it sounds super punchy. That kind of like really precisely programmed FM drum engine. So I'm really hoping that we could do more with that type of technology, whether it means like, doing more FM drum sounds or, it just seems that that's been really on trend recently with a lot of different products.
Well, these are the latest releases from Roland. These are all super cool, so flexible. We've gone into all the reaches of music. This has been super cool, and I can't wait to see what Roland comes out with next, because it's been super exciting lately. And these all are major hits. None of these are just another one of those. Like, these are all unique, super cool, super deep instruments in their own right, and they can play with others incredibly well. And, being digital in some ways, they can update or they integrate with things or they have cool history. So it all just goes to like Roland's legendary history of creating fantastic products for musicians. And I think without further ado, we give one of those instruments away. We've been looking for the winner, and the guys behind the scenes picked one. So guys, who we got? Who is winning the SP-404-SX? Paul Artola, congratulations. You are the winner. Email us at live@chucklevins.com. We'll get your information. We'll give this thing away. And a bonus for people that have been watching. The next 4 people that email live@chucklevins.com are going to get free t-shirts, because 404 t-shirts. Do it. If you're watching right now, you want a t-shirt, just email it. I got you. We'll get you some t-shirts, new sweet Chuck Levins t-shirts. Special thanks to everyone watching. This has been great. We really appreciate everybody that's tuned in. These have been great questions. You guys have been awesome, from all stretches of the country, probably around the world. I think I saw some people that are not even in the country. So this is fantastic. Thank you all for watching. Peter, what a wild ride.
Thank you so much for having me, man. This is fun.
It is always a treat to have you.
Yeah.
In the store, on the stream. Look, we were hitting up the guys at Roland's like, we need Peter on here ASAP. So this has been great.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thanks to our friends at Roland. We appreciate you guys. We couldn't do this without you. Thanks for making awesome products and incredible gear for musicians to make more super cool stuff. World, we'll see you next time. Have a great week. Happy Wednesday.